Yeah, the last few weeks, not only have they been so intense, and I feel like the teachings that I've shared have been so intense, I thought I needed to reground myself for my own sense of, call it my mental health, my spiritual health. So I was like, I want to just dig into Torah rather than talk about the politics of the world. Right? That there should be a space, a sanctuary. You're welcome. For the last weeks, I've been speaking extensively and deeply about what is happening in Israel and the region. And this week, I wanted to just teach some Torah. So I want us to have a dialogue about this. Hopefully, you're near someone that has a sheet. But as you'll see, that even the Torah isn't far from the politics of the world. Now, at the beginning, I have to say, I was told by the Sarahs in my life that do not end this talk blaming Sarahs for all of the world's problems. So I will do my best not to lay blame of all the generations and millennia of conflict on the Sarahs of the world. And you'll let me know how I do. I know the Sarahs of my life will let me know how I do. So let's dive in here. Who wants to be a reader? Well, someone up close, so you can kind of come and read it for everyone. Teddy, you want to do it? Come on, right up here. Right, I'll show you where we are. You're doing so great. Okay, right here, right at the beginning.
The child grew up and was weaned, and Abraham held a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. Sarah saw the son whom Hagar the Egyptian had borne to Abraham playing. She said to Abraham, "Cast out that slave woman and her son, for the son of that slave shall not share the inheritance with my son Isaac." The matter distressed Abraham greatly, for it concerned a son of his. But God said to Abraham, "Do not be distressed over the boy or your slave. Whatever Sarah tells you to do, as she says, for it is through Isaac that offspring shall be continued for you. For the son of the slave woman, I will make a nation of him too, for he is your seed."
Perfect, great, thank you. Okay, well, so I should say that is, for the Sarahs in my life, that is their favorite line. It says, whatever Sarah tells you to do, you should do it. But I'm going to focus on before. Verses 9 that I bolded and 10. Sarah saw the son whom Hagar the Egyptian had borne to Abraham playing. And then immediately in the very next verse, verse 10, she says to Abraham, "Cast out the slave woman and her son," right? So there is something that happens between verse 9 and verse 10 if we slow down and we try to get into Sarah's head. So my prompt is, what did Sarah see, right? In verse 9, Sarah saw something, and it prompted verse 10. So what do you think that Sarah saw that immediately led her to want to get rid of Hagar and Ishmael? If you want to peek. Yeah, Alan, way in the back. So maybe Ishmael was being mean to Isaac, right? Ishmael's probably 13 years old. Isaac is just being weaned. So maybe that means a year old, something like that. A big age difference between them. The big boy was being mean to the younger boy. And so Sarah, being protective, maybe wanted to get rid of him. That's an idea. Other ideas? Mitchell. So there's a feast going on. I guess there's a feast of when you when you're weaned, and maybe Ishmael was doing something that wasn't respectful to it. Maybe Ishmael was being a teenager, but maybe Ishmael was doing something that was disrespectful to it. Okay, that's another idea. One more idea, Rita. So Sarah, I'm repeating people's comments not only so everyone in the room can hear, but also people that are joining us via live stream can also be part of the experience here. So what Rita said is that maybe Sarah was jealous of Hagar, because of course Hagar could bear a child naturally. Sarah was barren, thus bringing Hagar into Abraham and Sarah's relationship, if you will. As a concubine, the Torah says, we would call it a surrogate in this day and age. And maybe there was this constant jealousy. It takes God's miracle, an angel to come for Sarah to become pregnant. And so maybe there was this feeling of, well, who's the alpha in this relationship? Who is the primary? Yes, Aunt Jess.
I just wanted to reiterate what I heard Teddy say in his Debar Torah, which is how hard it must have been for Sarah, this whole situation. And that's really important to think about, that we're not, we do not see people's actions in a binary way.
Right, so Aunt Jess is amplifying Teddy's assertion that we really need to see Sarah through the eyes of her struggle, right? For 13 years or so, 12, 13 years, she was in this relationship where every day, expanding on the idea, every day her infertility was put on display and mocked. Trying to be in Sarah's mind, and mocked as she saw her husband Abraham playing and enjoying and doing all of the fatherhood things that she couldn't provide, but Hagar could. And that in Teddy's idea of trauma, maybe that there was trauma in Sarah's experience. And so we need to slow down, not just from one verse to the next, from verse 9 to verse 10, but also to recognize there's a dozen years of experience that the Torah blows through, and we need to slow down to think a little bit of what's happening in Sarah. Yeah, Marilyn.
The Rashi mentions this, that the word mitzachek
Yeah.
doesn't just mean play. In biblical Hebrew and elsewhere in the Torah, it has a sexual connotation. So exactly what was going on between Ishmael and Isaac is not clear, but based upon that connotation, she saw something happening that she perceived was going to, talk about trauma, was going to traumatize her son for the rest of his life. And she was like, I can't let that happen.
So what Marilyn brings us is down to the Rashi that's in here. Rashi, of course, a primary biblical commentator. And Rashi's picking up on the word playing, is how it's translated here, but mitzachek, which of course also has the root of Yitzhak as well in it. So Rashi offers a few different ideas. One is that maybe what Sarah saw was Ishmael doing idol worship, okay? And that's what set her off and said, that's not happening in my house, and we're gonna send them away. Or maybe another explanation is that it refers to immoral conduct, just as you say in reference to Potiphar's wife. This was Marilyn's take on it, that in this word, there's a sexual connotation as well, and maybe there was something improper Rashi offers between Ishmael and Isaac. We don't know what that might have been. Another explanation is that it refers to murder. And number 4 in the Rashi is from Sarah's reply, for the son of the bondwoman shall not be heir with my son. You may infer that he, Ishmael, was quarreling with Isaac about the inheritance, saying, I'm the firstborn and will therefore take a double portion, right? So of course, Ishmael is the firstborn, and he may be saying like, no, I get my portion, the larger portion, as being the firstborn. And so maybe they were infighting here. Of course, we're talking about a 13-year-old and a 1-year-old, but in the rabbinic imagination, right, and this, of course, wouldn't be wouldn't be the first time that we saw siblings quarreling in the Bible, or the last time. Or the fifth explanation that Rashi offers is they went into the field and Ishmael took his bow and shot arrows at him, which of course, right, might be fun that they might be playing, but maybe he was trying to harm Isaac as well. Of course, there's the famous Haftarah with Jonathan and David, where the shooting the arrows becomes sort of an act of love and protection for it. But here it's the opposite. Here we see something different. So those are options as to what Sarah might have seen. But what might have Sarah been thinking about as she was seeing this, right? Slightly different question. What might she be thinking about it? So Sforno, who I think Teddy also quoted Sforno. Sforno says that she assumed, so assumed means she was thinking about it, assumed that the reason Ishmael had made disparaging remarks about Yitzhak was due to his mother putting him up to it, or to the Egyptian genes of his mother coming into play here. We have a saying in Sukkah 56, a section of the Talmud Sforno quotes, that the prattle of children in public reflects either what they picked up from their father or what they picked up from their mother. In the case of Ishmael, he certainly did not overhear his father make such disparaging remarks, because of course his father was Abraham, right? So now I think that Sforno comment is something that we should totally unpack for like how we gossip, how would kids pick up things, how they hear what's going on. You know, when you hear a kid saying something, you know, a political comment or something, they couldn't have come up with it themselves. It clearly came from the house. And even back in Sforno's time, centuries ago, he understood that dynamic as well, that young people hear and are nurtured, or marinate is the word I'm looking for, marinate with whatever's going on in the house. So be careful what you say around your kids. They have big ears and will listen as to what's happening. So the only way that Ishmael could have been talking badly was because it must have been he picked it up from his mom, Hagar. And therefore, it plays into that dynamic that Sarah and Hagar have this conflict. Now, another overlay here is, of course, Ishmael is given credit as being the progenitor of the Arab people. And Isaac is the progenitor, if you will, of the Jewish people. That this is a long-held rabbinic teaching. And that there is a commonality with Abraham, of course. So in a sense, we are brethren. We are misunderstood to each other in many ways. And so while Isaac and Ishmael have a connection, we also have a conflict. As I see a Sarah in the back, I promised that I wouldn't blame all of this on Sarah's, so don't worry. But let's look at this last text here. This is from Rabbi Norman Cohen, who's a professor at HUC in New York. It's a beautiful book. He has 2 books in this series: Self, Struggle, and Change, Family Conflict Stories in Genesis and Their Healing Insights for Our Lives. It's a really interesting book, bringing together kind of the modern therapy in looking at the family dynamics of Genesis. So let's read this together. As Abraham thought about the day, right, this day, what made matters worse was that what occurred right after the weaning celebration. You would think Abraham would have been so happy on this day. Sarah saw Ishmael, the son of Hagar the Egyptian, playing, mitzachek. At what must have been her supreme moment of happiness, the birth and weaning of the son of her old age, Sarah could only see one thing: Ishmael playing. Unnamed here and merely identified as the son of a slave, Ishmael is the object of her attention. right? Why was she so focused on this? Of all of the things, there was the whole party going on, and this is what she's obsessed about. What was Ishmael doing that so bothered Abraham's wife? And why at this moment of all times would Sarah become upset because of Ishmael? Now, at the very moment of her heightened joy at the realization that Isaac would surely live, why should what Ishmael did matter? What is, of course, absolutely startling is the use of the term mitzachek, which comes from the same root as the Hebrew word for Isaac, Yitzhak, both meaning laugh. Isaac and Ishmael, the two brothers from different mothers, nevertheless bear the same description. That Ishmael and Isaac are described in the same ways, showing their connection. That he continues, they are one. The use of mitzachek as an allusion to Isaac indicates that Sarah, seeing the two brothers together, suddenly realized the close affinity that would develop between them and became extremely concerned about Isaac's future, right? That they would be too close to each other. They would care for each other too deeply. They might be too connected to each other. If they were too much alike, Cohen continues, then Ishmael would pose a threat to Isaac's inheritance. Paul Berman, in a poignant article entitled "The Other and the Almost the Same," noted that the person who closely resembles us, yet who is not really our double, might end up saying, "You are almost like me. The similarity between us is so plain that in the eyes of the world you are my brother. My identity consists precisely of the ways in which I am different from you, though." Right? Our differences are what make us unique. Right? And if we are too similar to each other, and I'm looking at the Chazan because he has an identical twin brother, right? That if you are seen as one and the same as the other, then you lose your unique qualities. Yet the more you resemble me, the harder it is for anyone to see those crucial differences. Our resemblance threatens to obliterate everything that is special about me. Sarah's fears could not be more succinctly expressed, Rabbi Cohen says. So Ishmael and his lineage, and Isaac and his lineage, which includes us, right? Maybe we need to both recognize and celebrate how similar we are, Isaac and Ishmael, and simultaneously recognize and honor the real differences that we have. Without being able to do both of those things, then we are stuck in a pattern of this sibling conflict where Isaac and Ishmael are fighting each other over and over again. In another story, Abraham reminds Sarah that I love Ishmael too. Right? And so Abraham is also hurt and harmed in this story. So as we see this simply as another story of the Torah, of Abraham and Sarah and Hagar and Ishmael and Yitzhak, I think there are things that we might be able to, at our best moments, apply to the world today. Of recognizing that the family dynamics that we share hurt all of us. Finding the path forward, though, is so hard for them and so hard for us. Shabbat Shalom.